all my Kenvians, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discovering Steven Universe. I do not think I could have been more wrong about my guess about this upcoming episode, or about this episode in the previous episode, what I was thinking. Basically, I thought that maybe Garnet's universe, maybe we'll learn more about Garnet. No. And, I just want to say this, for those of you that, whenever I bring up the idea that maybe an episode is filler, compared to this episode, the last one is definitely not filler. But if you claim that no Steven Universe episode is filler, how do you explain Garnet's universe? I mean, unless there's some sort of weird foreshadowing about Ronaldo being a supervillain, or Lars being descended from foxes, I don't know what to tell you. But let's get right into Garnet's universe with my favorite parts about this episode. Starting with the fact that it's entirely told... Well, we don't get all narration from Steven, unfortunately. I was hoping we would get a little bit of that since the story's made up in his mind. But it's entirely, technically, through Steven's thoughts. Which brings me to my next favorite part of the episode, which is just the art style that they went with. It's very much an art style that makes me believe it's in Steven's imagination. Just something about the art style's similarities and differences from what we usually get. Whether the quality varies from time to time, but just the overall art style feels like it belongs in Steven's imagination. And the fact that it's kind of video game-esque and very, very much anime-inspired just makes it that much better. Which really makes sense considering some of the shows that we've seen Steven watch. I'm not sure the crying vegetables or the crying food items would really count. But who knows? Maybe that is supposed to be anime. I don't know. But moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode was Hoppy and Hopper. And when I was trying to place the voices, I thought that it was the women that voice Pearl and Amethyst, and I was right, but I actually got them mixed up. I thought that Hopper was the actress for Amethyst, trying to sound like Pearl, and then vice versa for Hoppy. I think Hoppy is the rabbit, right? Yes, Hoppy is the rabbit. But in fact, they use... So, Hopper is voiced by Pearl's voice actress, and Hoppy is voiced by Amethyst's voice actress. But the personalities are overall kind of switched, because Hoppy is very meditative and uses a sword, which is what made me think that it probably was Pearl's voice actress. And then Hopper... I guess I kind of thought Hopper might have been Amethyst because in one or maybe two of the scenes, Hopper uses her tongue, I think it's a her, kind of like a whip. And again, that's what made me think of Amethyst because that's her weapon, which is a whip. But overall, just the introduction of these adorable, completely imaginary and will never appear again, most likely, characters was kind of fun. And it was interesting to see how, again, I mean, this is all scripted by other people, but, the idea that these sort of convoluted thoughts as to why Garnet hasn't told Steven about her animal friends yet, you know, coming from a kid's mind. I love that. It reminds me of the thought process we kind of get from Calvin and Calvin and Hobbes comics. Just the over thinking way too much about certain things that really make no sense. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Or does it? I don't know. I'm not sure it makes sense right now. But anyway, moving on from there, my next favorite parts of this episode were FOXMAN, aka Lars, because that is very clearly his voice, and then Ringo, who is even more obviously voiced by the guy that voices Ronaldo, because it looks like Ronaldo, but with a ring in his hair instead of the dreads that Ronaldo has. And I don't know, that was... After the last episode with Ronaldo in it, I didn't think I would want to see him anymore for a long while. But with the fact that this was a completely different character, it didn't really bother me that he was there. So I enjoyed that fact. And then Lars, well, the guy that voices Lars, the FOXMAN character was just fine. It was kind of funny, and the way it motivated this weird little training sequence when FOXMAN defeated Garnet in this increasingly Dragon Ball Z-esque style. But yeah, so like those two characters, I found them rather enjoyable. Strangely, particularly Ringo, even though again Ronaldo isn't one of my favorites, but you know, he's fun. But moving on from there, the training sequence with Garnet in the pond, or is it a waterfall? I don't remember. But like increasing of her gauntlets, you know, making them weighted. And it's just, like I said, it's increasingly Dragon Ball Z-esque, because through Dragon Ball Z, especially, well, at least in the early portions, we find out that like Goku and some of the others wear weighted clothing to increase their training. And when they take it off, they get more powerful. But yeah, just, and even the screams, like it just goes so Dragon Ball Z. Like basically the last third of this entire episode was Dragon Ball Z. In the end, and it's referenced a few more times, as you'll see. During the fight with Ultimate Ringo, yeah, that's what he changed his name to, Ultimate Ringo. First, Hoppy gets taken out, and then Hopper gets taken out. And I don't know if this was supposed to be... like, if it was just the Garnet's voice actress misreading a line and they decided to keep it in, or if it's deliberately like Steven getting his own thoughts mixed up. Which makes sense, because Hoppy and Hopper. But Garnet says, Hoppy! I mean, Hopper! I think it's because it confuses me, and it, like, my first thought is that it probably is Steven getting his own thoughts confused, which just cracks me up even more, because again, this is all supposed to be from the imagination of a kid, and it shows that, you know, even they're able to break the fourth wall within the cartoon, I guess, within that imagination. Yeah, I really liked it. But next, and this goes along with the training, but the weighted hair, Garnet's weighted hair. That was, oh, excuse me. Ooh. That was easily one of the most unexpected parts of this episode. The fact that she takes off her hair. Which I'm pretty sure that actually, like, the character's hair is actually hair. It's not a helmet in the show. And she's not real, so it's hard to say, but still, just the idea of the weighted hair I find hilarious. And then when she goes Super Garnet / Super Saiyan, whatever it is, she gets a new head of hair, which was great. So yeah, the weighted hair was awesome. And then finally, it's the very end, literally the last lines of the episode, and you know, Garnet's just very much playing along with Steven, and she says, yep, that's pretty much what happened. And Steven, as naive and, you know, being a child as he is, goes, really? And then we end the episode with, no. So, I just, on those favorite parts alone, I mean, it's clear I really enjoyed this episode. My annoyances with the episode, one I haven't written down, but the one I did write down is the adorable awkwardness of it all. And I realize that's probably something really stupid to put in as an annoyance, but it's just, the episode feels completely out of left field. And goes along with really my second annoyance, which is that this is very clearly a filler episode. This episode, unless there's something hidden deep beneath in the dialogue that I didn't catch, it's very clearly a filler episode, which, again, if people say that there are no filler episodes in Steven Universe, I don't see how that can hold true at this point. Again, given this episode. But yeah, just the adorable awkwardness of it all and how it stands out so much from any of the other episodes. It's... maybe it's just something I'm more neutral on than it actually being an annoyance. But yeah, that's... I don't know, that's just the way I felt about it. And maybe some of this comes from just me wanting to try and understand how there could be no filler episodes for Steven Universe, and yet Garnet's universe is a thing. But, alright, let me know your own favorites and annoyances for this episode. As always, leave them in the comments down below. Moving on, tracks of the episode, pretty much the entire episode. All of the music, very much video game inspired. I would say actually very retro game inspired as far as musical style. And it was just incredibly enjoyable. All of the music fit well, and it was a lot of fun to listen to. Like, if there was an episode, if there were, I would say the two-parter with where we were introduced to Lapis, the music from those episodes and then the music from this one would probably stand out the most to me as far as entire episodes with great music. Or maybe I'm just remembering it wrong. I don't know! Moving on from there, though, as for some quotes of the episode, we did get a few once more. The first of which is after Steven does a Steven bomb onto Garnet and covers her eyes. To say, "You can't see!" She said, and the tone of voice in which this is read just goes back to how loving Garnet is towards Steven. It's seemingly, other than when he made her very mad by slapping her, just this unapologetic, pure love that she has for him. And again, me reading it isn't going to give it its full worth, but tiny hands, my only weakness. And again, it's just, the way it's read just makes that line work so well. So yeah, anyway, that's my line from Garnet. My next two very much have to do with my correlations I was making with Dragon Ball Z in this show earlier. The first of which comes from Hopper, and it's when she's looking at her energy reader or whatever, showing Garnet's strength, and it starts rising so much, she says, "Numbers have no meaning!" And it explodes. And that's basically what happens in Dragon Ball Z eventually. Like, in the early points, they measure, like, the Saiyans have these scouters that detect energy levels from different fighters, including themselves. And eventually, the numbers just get so ridiculously, stupidly high that they just don't even bother giving them numbers. So it's just like, numbers have no meaning! Kind of reminded me of the, it's over 9,000! And then finally, from Ultimate Ringo during the final battle with Garnet. And it's just the simple line this is getting ridiculous. And I almost can't help but feel like that was some of Garnet's thoughts, like, sinking into Steven's story. Because... and it goes along with the whole numbers and power levels in Dragon Ball Z. It's just like, it gets ridiculous after a while. And so do the fights, and clearly so does the fight in this episode, and how powerful Garnet gets! Over 9,000! 9,000, that can't be right! Anyway. But yeah, just, those two quotes really worked for me, especially in my personal comparison of a fair portion of this episode to Dragon Ball Z. But anyway, moving on from there, actually, I don't have any questions nor theories. I guess the one theory I can come up with off the top of my head is that this episode holds more meaning than I think it does. That's really the only direction I can go with that, is just to think that maybe the episode means more to the overall story and just everything in general than I think. But if that's the case, it's gonna be a doozy, and I will definitely be surprised. Yeah, but that's all I gotta say. Anyway, my overall thoughts on this episode, as it's ridiculous, it's silly, incredibly awkward in its adorableness, and adorable in its awkwardness. But I really enjoyed it. For an episode that I very much consider filler, very much. Okay, the last one we won't count as filler. This next one, or this one right here, yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable, fun episode that, as far as I can tell, had nothing to do with anything other than just showing us Steven's imagination. And I'm totally fine with that. Again, because it was enjoyable and it was fun. And you could probably completely skip by this episode and would never know it, but at the same time, you'd be missing out on probably one of the more just purely lighthearted and fun episodes in the show so far. But yeah, those are my thoughts overall. As always, everyone, please do leave your own thoughts, some of your favorites, your annoyances, any tracks or quotes you might have in mind in the comments down below. I really appreciate you all, as always, joining me for this episode, and next time we're going to be getting into Watermelon Steven. I'm not even going to bother guessing what the episodes are about anymore. It's like, at this point, the only thing I can assume is Steven turns into a watermelon, or a watermelon turns into Steven. That's all I got. But again, thank you all very much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Steven Universe. I hope you all enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing your thoughts. And until next time, for Watermelon Steven, I'm PapaKenn, and I'll see you next time. Repeating myself again. Anyway, Alonzi!